Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar on making the most of 3D WG files in Revit. And my name is Alyssa Jairus, and I am a BIM specialist in the AEC build space at Baker Baines. Okay. All right, so if it's your first time joining us, who is Baker Baines? Okay, so we're the largest Autodesk authorized gold partner, and we specialize in a few of these things that you see in front of you. Some of the services that we offer is CAD learning, and also we do have a training center at our offices that we do training, one-on-one training. At Baker Baines, we believe in designing a better world, in delivering better product or a project, in technology adoption to produce better results. Okay, and the agenda for today. Okay, so what we're basically going to go through is the basic differences, or firstly the Revit import file formats and the types of file formats that you can bring into Revit other than your usual DWGs. And then I want to look at a little bit of the collaboration between AutoCAD and Revit users, as I know that there are a lot of people that are in Revit and have consultants that are still on AutoCAD. So how can we make that work to our advantage? So we will be looking at things like CAD links and imports, what's the differences. Then we're going to see how we can convert 3D DWG files into mass families, and then try to navigate around what the visual settings look like for those objects, and even what would you do if you needed to render these objects. Okay, we'll go through a lot of other things along with those topics. Some other stuff that I thought I'll just put into our webinar is other file formats. You know, what do you do with sort of like your OBJ file format, your SAT, things like that. How do you work around those kind of formats that don't go into Revit? And the ones that do go into Revit, they are not always the best files, and then you may have problems with those items, and we're going to look through the causes and maybe possible solutions to look for in the future. All right, so the first thing is, so there's a few of the Revit file formats, or import file formats rather, that we can bring into Revit. I know there's a few others. Those are like the major ones that I have up on the screen. Other than your usual CAD formats like your SAT files, your DWF, your DWG, FB, IFC, I think it is, and there's a few image file formats that you can see in there, and there's a few others, including like an Excel spreadsheet, or Align as an XLS file format and a TXT file format. Okay, but we'll be focusing mostly on the first few, or really the hero of it, which is the DWG, which is what we use mostly. Okay, so let me just get you onto my screen. All right. Okay, so this is a file that I currently have in a DWG format, and it is modeled up in 3D, and we're going to talk more about this file in a bit. Right, I just want to quickly switch back to my Revit, and I'm going to talk about your imports versus your links. Okay, if you do have maybe consultants or other people that are working on CAD, and you're trying to also, you know, collaborate together with the Revit project, if I just go to the Insert tab, there's a difference between linked in CAD and an import CAD. Okay, linking in your CAD, if if you've used AutoCAD before, if you think about XREFs and XREFing a file into your Revit, that would be linking in the CAD. Okay, it's got a link that's directly linked to the external CAD file. So when those changes, if there are any changes that are being made in that DWG externally, you can reload them in your current Revit project. With regard to the importing of the CAD, it would be more, you know, if you import it in here, it's kind of its own object within this Revit file, and it has no relation thereafter to the external file or the original DWG. So that's the differences between those two. So essentially, if you need to import any kind of, you know, or link in any kind of CAD, you would use any of those two objects, okay, or those two formats. But what happens when you actually have things like, so I've came across a file or a company who had a structural engineer who was still modeling his items in AutoCAD, and it was a whole floor slab, and we needed to actually bring in that DWG into Revit. When we brought it in here, there wasn't much that we could do with it. It is lines, you know, so we tried to figure out a better way of actually bringing 3D modeled objects into Revit and seeing how that we can work together with that kind of format. So if I just switch to my DWG, all right, you can see that this is like a similar instance of a coffer slab. It's very specific, so it's a bit difficult to get something like this in Revit. So it's great that we have this example. This has been modeled in 3D in CAD. You can see my view cube is kind of to the top here, the corner, and I'm looking down. So it's completely 3D. The color in here that you see is a green line, but it is really up to you or the engineer on the color scheme of how this DWG actually looks. For now, it is in a layer that's green, but it's not like set in stone that this is what it needs to be in. All right. So we found ways to actually bring in files like this into Revit by using a mass. Okay, so if I might just say that if you do have Revit LT, you won't be able to use this method because the massing aspect off of Revit won't be available in Revit LT. It's more for the full version of Revit. So just be a bit wary about that. All right, so essentially we want to create a new mass, but not within the file that we're in right now. Okay, we want to create a family of a mass, okay, with this DWG file in there. Okay, so I can go to File, and I'm going to go to New Conceptual Mass, and that's going to open me up to like a folder with the template for the mass. All right, so you can see this New Conceptual Mass. It's a template. Okay, it's a free-form mass. If you think more along the lines of kind of SketchUp and Format and those types of things, very free form type family. So I can just click on this. I'm going to open that one up. Okay, and then let's see if we can bring in our CAD into here. Right, so you can also use this method if you're having problems with bringing in DWGs into your usual Revit program, because there is sometimes, you know, it gets a bit fussy with the geometry of things. So I've opened up my mass. Okay, first thing, let's just save this as a family. Let's call this slab. Okay, let's do that. Save it in here. Okay, you can see that the tab there, the ribbon, looks a bit different. It is a family type or mass family type edit, if I might say. So it looks a bit different around it. If you've used masses before, you would be a bit more familiar with the tools that you see on the top here. Okay, but we also have an insert tab. Okay, so we can import this CAD and we can kind of just arrange it in here so that when we bring it into our main project file, that it sits where we need it to sit. So let's just go to maybe a floor plan view. Maybe it might be a little bit easier. So let's import that CAD. Okay, that's the copper slab that I'm looking for. Okay, there's a whole bunch of settings at the bottom here. If I want it to be in the current view, if I want to preserve the colors that you see there, if I want all the layers to be brought in, and things like auto detecting import units. And before I actually move on, it would be a good or best practice to just make sure that that file is cleaned up when you receive it from your consultants or whoever you receive it from. Do things like a purge, audit it, make sure that it's not a heavy file, get it down to the minimum that you can, and then kind of bring it into this family, because we don't want our main Revit project to be lagging and to kind of just be a bit slow. So make sure your CAD file is cleaned up before we actually bring this in. So I'm just going to open that. Let's hope it doesn't take too long. Also, the bigger your file, the more it's going to actually take a longer time to import that in. So I tried to cut down my file size as far as I could for the exercise, so we didn't have to wait too long for this to be imported in. Now let's just give it a few moments. Okay, I'm getting a little error message there. Let's just see if it's been imported. Okay, it's there. All right. All right. So this is a DWG. That's okay. I see it got placed and it got pinned. So I'm just going to unpin that. You can see it's a DWG, and I'm just going to move it closer to these two reference lines or reference planes. And I'm doing that because I want to make sure that this point of insertion is where my DWG is going to be placed on. Okay, so when I'm loading in this family, I want to know that my cursor is close by to this DWG file. Okay, so even if I want to, okay, I can even just align it in here. So I can use my align tool and align these things in here. Okay, right? So let's just see, okay, it looks great in plan. Let's just see what it looks like in elevation, or not 3D right now. Let's check what it looks like in elevation. Okay, so because we're in a family edit mode or family mass, you can see that there's a level. Okay, anybody that uses Revit would know that when we place any kind of loadable family into our project, it gets placed onto the level that we're on. And if there's a specified distance from that level in the family, then it gets placed at that height. Okay, we need to take into account that when we're placing our floor slab, where do we actually want it to sit? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this floor slab below the level. Okay, because usually we'll have a level TOC, okay, top of concrete, and then we'd have the floor slab going down like this. Okay, obviously this is not set in stone. It really depends on what is easier for you. I think it's easier if I place it on the level that it's meant to be on, and it populates itself like this. Okay, all right. So let's just make sure that that is saved. It's as simple as that. We don't need to touch anything with this DWG. It's going to recognize it as a mass when we bring it into our into our main project. So we can load this in now. So we can either load into project or load into project and close, which is the one I'm going to click on now. Okay, and so let's see what this looks like. Okay, if you saw that message, you would know that usually on some of the templates of Revit templates, the mass visibility of a mass is normally switched off. So don't think that it's not in your file. We'll go through some of the visibility settings and how to get it to show and to change what the graphics look like. So right now you can't really see much on my cursor, so I'm just going to click to place it, and then we'll move it around in a bit. Okay, I'm just going to cancel. All right, I'm going to check my 3D. It's probably not going to show me anything because the visibility is still switched off. Oh, it's switched on. All right. Okay. Okay, I want to try and cut a section. Let's just make sure visibility is switched on. Okay, so in plan right now, before I move around the mass, let's try and find the mass first. So let's go to our visibility and graphics override there that you see. Okay, you would find that when you're not in selection of anything, you can click the edit button next to that to make sure that your mass is switched on. So these visibility and graphic overrides allow you to set what visibility you want for these categories of items in the Revit file. So you can see that mass is not ticked, so I need to tick that on, and I'm going to come back to these other settings in a bit. So let's tick that on there. All right, let's check the 3D. Since this is on, I'm assuming that the mass is ticked on here as well. Okay, that's why we're allowed to see it. Perfect. Okay, and let's try and cut a section through as well to see what this is doing. So let's go to view. All right, and again, checking the visibility and graphics overrides, you would see that the mass is switched on. Off. That was weird. Okay, but that's fine. All right, perfect. So let's just check on what level this is actually sitting on. Okay, I'm going to find my level lines. They look like they're missing. Let's try cutting another section. All right, to get my level lines showing. Let's cut one around there. Go to view. Okay, they're still missing. It's fine. For the sake of time, I'm just going to continue. Okay, so essentially we can now see the copper slab and all the little kind of cut-ins in there. All right, and we can shift this and move this around to allow us to position it in the correct place and pin it in its position. Okay, so if I just go to level 2 and just mine that one there. Okay, that's my DWG. Okay, this is my mass. All right, we can see it on my second floor because the cut plane is a different plane. So I'm just going to move it and shift it around into where it's actually meant to be. All right. Okay. So floor slab down there. Essentially, if I don't want to see the floor slab, I can right click and hide this in view. Okay. If I want to change what the graphics look like, I'm going to show you how to do that in our section view. So if I go to the view in the section, okay, I've moved that over. Okay, but we can't really see any hatch patterns or anything like that. So how do we deal with something like that? And right now it still looks a bit green. So how do we interface with all of these? And even this wall doesn't look like it's connecting very well with this floor slab. Okay, so I can essentially click on this and right click and override the graphics. Okay, or if I want to change things like this hatch pattern, I can go back to my visibility and graphics that I see in my properties. Okay, the shortcut for that would be VG. Okay, and this would pop up, and I can scroll down to where the mass is on here. All right, and I can change things like what the cut pattern looks like. And because that we've loaded the DWG into the mass family and loaded this into our project, now we'll be able to actually show a cut pattern as compared to just importing or linking in a normal DWG file. It wouldn't work the same. So under my cut pattern, I can override this. Okay, I can choose a black. Okay, and I can choose a pattern, a hatch pattern. Okay, so this is what it looks like in the cut view. Okay, essentially I could also override what the cut lines look like, and I'm sure they would be a little bit thicker than most, so you could change the line weight and so on. So I'm going to click OK. Let's click apply. All right, and let's change things like what the line, projection line, so things that you would see in elevation. Change that to a black line because right now it's green. All right. Okay, I still see a little bit of green in our line. Let's see how we can actually change that. Okay, so if I click in my mass, I right click it, I go to override graphics in view by element, okay, and then I can change these lines in here as well. Okay. Let's try this one. See if that changes. All right, that we're getting somewhere. So we can change the line weight in here as well. Okay, it would mean the same thing if I change it in both. So now our coffer slab, which is actually in DWG that's placed into a mass family, looks like an actual slab in our Revit model. Okay, what happens to an item like this where it's not joining well into the wall? We can use our join tool under modify and join to just join the geometry together. Okay, it's joining it too much. Okay, but essentially this is the tool that you would want to use. Okay, when it comes to things like penetrations and so on, you would have to go back to your AutoCAD file and draw in the penetrations in here. So you would have to bring this back into your mass family. Okay. There was an option of using voids, but the voids in Revit doesn't really pick up the DWG in the mass family. So you would have to draw your penetrations and so on in your AutoCAD file. Okay. All right. So what happens if you want to render any of these items? So let's just switch back to a 3D view. Okay, what happens if I want to render these items? Okay, I'm just overriding the graphics again, just to get my color back. Okay, essentially this is a mass family. So the only way to apply any kind of material would be to paint the surface by using our paint tool. You're going to find that under modify, and it's going to look like a little paintbrush or a little paint symbol rather. I'm mixing up that paintbrush. So if I drop that down, you can see there's a paint tool. If I click on this paint tool, it's going to bring me up the material browser. There's a list of materials that are currently in our project, and I will be able to render or paint on the surface off of this mass family. And to see those colors being applied right now, so I'm just going to change my visual style to realistic so that you can just see the changes on there. All right. So obviously when we render this, it will have the material applied in here. Although this is a floor slab and I am just using an example to do this, you might have any other kind of items that you want to bring in and actually paint that item with the specific material so that when it gets rendered, it actually looks like what you need it to look like. Okay. All right. Okay, so back to our agenda. So what happens when you have other file formats? How can we bring in those file formats into Revit, since Revit has a few different ones, but you might have some kind of suppliers or other companies that are sending you files that are not in the file formats that can be imported into Revit, what do you do with those? Or essentially, you might have problems with bringing in a file into Revit and it gives you a whole bunch of errors about how it can't really create the object, or the object comes in and it doesn't look appropriate, it doesn't look like what it's originally meant to be looking like. So I've actually went through a whole bunch of solutions and found that we could possibly use other software to convert these or change these files and then bring them into Revit. So if you have availability to these other softwares, use them to your advantage so that you might accomplish these things. So one of the things would be using, so the two things that I'm going to go through are using 3ds Max and Format. Okay, so we're going to do the Format first, and then I'm just going to merely talk about 3ds Max because my application seems to be on strike today, so I'll have a problem opening that one. So I'm just going to talk about Format quickly, and I'm going to just click on Format icon. Okay, so this kind of looks a little bit like SketchUp. So the functionality of Format is a lot like SketchUp. If anybody's used Google SketchUp, you would kind of understand how to use Format. So Autodesk has brought in this new product called Format, and what's great about this application is that it works with your Revit. So usually you can bring in the files that you create, so you can essentially design your buildings or anything in Format and then link it up into your Revit and actually have a family or some item created. And Revit most of the time recognizes different things of Format, so it realizes if you've been creating a specified something to be a wall, it does recognize that as a wall. Instead of remodeling all these things, it's a little bit easier to integrate your design with your construction drawings. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to bring in another file. So if I might just give you an example, okay? In this Revit file, if I try importing this SAT file. So I'm going to try importing an SAT file. Okay, let's see if I can find it. Let's just change this to SAT here. Okay, let's try bringing this in. You can specify what category you want to import it as. Okay, essentially it would be, if there's a bracket, what would it be? Let's see. Let's just put it as that. Okay, you can see that the file had problems coming into Revit. So how do we go about actually bringing in that file in here? So I have my Format open. Okay, Format has a whole bunch of other file import types that you can use. So let's just go to File, say Import, and import 3D model. In here, I'm just going to quickly, so let's just go back one. All right. There we go. So I'm just going to drop that menu down, and you can just see a whole bunch of different file formats that, like an OBJ, which doesn't really go into Revit. Okay, so you can bring these files in here and essentially use that and then send it back into Revit. So I've got this bracket in here that I'm going to bring in here. All right, let's give it a moment or two to just load in here. Oh, that was quick. All right, so I've got a little bracket that's going on. Okay, essentially I could come in here and I could change the materials, put the certain items on a layer, and send it back to Revit. Okay. Then what I do is I save the sketch. Okay, I save the sketch as the file that I'm going to bring into Revit. Okay, so Format saves in an AXM file format, right? So that's great. I'm just going to say yes. Perfect. going to go back to my Revit. All right, then we have an add-in. Okay, and usually this add-in comes in with your Revit, or you can go and find it on the App Store. So it's a little add-in that helps you kind of work between Format and Revit. So if I just drop down the Format Converter, so I drop that down, I have an option to import Format to Revit. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go find my my bracket, and I'm going to bring that in. Okay, let's wait for it. So if you think about the kind of things like parameters and parametrics and so on, you would know that you wouldn't be able to do these things because we won't be able to add parameters in Format or 3ds Max to bring that into Revit. So our families aren't intelligent, they just come in as what we need them to be. So this is why I brought up the topic of suppliers, that you may need a furniture piece or something very specific that just looks the part, and if you need to form some kind of render or 3D that you might need to have these objects in, this is a great process. So you can see that our brackets in here, and it's a family type in here, all right, along with our coffee slab. Okay, so now essentially I can use this in here, and again, let's give our paint a try. Okay, again, we can paint these items to make it look specifically like what we need it to be. Okay. Oh, that's looking a bit funky in there. All right. So the last method or solution that we came up with was using 3ds Max to bring in a few other objects. Okay. Unfortunately, my application is not working, but I was smart enough to actually save in a file just to help us, like a backup file. So essentially what I have done is I've taken my table. So I had a table in a 3ds file format. I've taken it into 3ds Max on a blank scene, and then I've exported it out into a table DWG. Okay, it's just a normal DWG. I've just named it table. Right. So if I just go back to my Revit, let's try it out inside here. Let's import that DWG in. Okay, so import CAD. I'm just going to go find the file. Let's change my file type at the bottom first. Okay, that's my table. Let's bring it in. Let's see what it looks like. Let's unpin that and let's see. Nope. You're not going to see it on all sides because it's still a DWG, right? That's a great example. So if I go to my 3D view, you can't see it. All right, but let's try putting it in a mass. So if I go to a new mass, okay, just like what we did with the slab, and if I import that table file in here, okay, essentially I can load this to our new project. Let's just save this as. Okay, and load this into our project. a great example to show you the differences. Okay, I'm not seeing my table though. The application is on strike. Okay, let me just check my visibility graphics. Okay, my mouse seems to be showing. So C, let's try placing it. Oh, there we go. Seems to have placed it on my level 2. Okay, that's fine. Okay, essentially I can paint these and you can see the big difference between those two. Okay, let's just put this on level. It looks exactly the same, but let's just change this to realistic. I'll be able to paint. Okay, and I can't paint that. Okay, so essentially I could come in here, find some type of wood, and paint the surface of that table. This is my DWG, and you can see that I'm unable to do that with that. So we need to bring this in as a mass family rather than a DWG, so we can actually interface with it and change things on here. I'm still not sure where it is in my 3D. Let me just find it quickly. It'd be great to see it. Oh. I guess it doesn't want to be seen. Okay. Okay, but that's fine. You can try it out for yourself. You can go crazy and see what that changes actually do for you. Okay, so I'm just going to switch back to the screen. All right, so I'm just going to quickly go through a summary of what we've done. Okay, so we went through some of the Revit import file formats, and then we went through what is linking in a CAD versus importing CAD, and then we went through how to convert a 3D DWG into a mass family. Okay, what we've done is first we said, let's clean up the DWG file, we'll create a new mass off of the family templates that we have, and then we load or bring in the DWG into that mass family, and then load that family into our project. Okay, when we were in the project, we were adjusting the visibility and graphics settings, turning on the visibility, setting the cut and surface hatch line types to change what a floor stab had looked like, and even if we had to do that with the table, we could get a similar result. Okay, then we went through adding materials using the paint tool. Okay, so we clicked on paint, which was under the modified tab, and then we accessed the whole list of materials from the material browser and just applied that paint or material to the new mass family. Okay, then we looked at using alternative software and for problematic imports. Okay, unfortunately, I couldn't open my 3ds Max to show you how to do that, but if you could just see on the left, you would find that under your file, import settings or export settings to export it out as a DWG and import in the file that you require, like the 3ds file. We also looked at format and bringing in that bracket in there, and then linking that file, the format file, to Revit and bringing in that as a family. And the last bit that you see there is just the Autodesk app and the handle for that. If you need that format converter plug-in or add-in on your Revit to help you interface or help you work between the two software, then you can get that on that app store, and it should be a free plug-in that you can get. Right. Okay, the last thing that I just want to quickly say is there's an AU Africa conference that's coming up, and in case you guys don't know, it's a little knowledge sharing conference where you get to like upskill and learn new trends, as well as a little a nice event at the end of the day where you get to actually sit down behind a desk on a computer and do the work that's actually being presented, which is quite fun. So it is CBD accredited, so I think that's great for you people who are signed up with SACAP. And that's it's a 2-day pass, and yeah, so if you're interested, you can check out the website, have a look, and see what if you want to attend. Otherwise, I am done. I apologize for the software not working or my DWG not even showing up. Technology has a mind of its own some days, so please do understand. But please send through any kind of questions that you might have or any topics that you do have for further webinars that I might take a look at. So I'll just give you guys a few moments for any questions. Okay, so I have a question from Christopher who wants to know if it's possible to import MicroStation 3D drawings into Revit. I'm not too familiar with that file, so maybe I'm going to take a look at it. It's a good question. It'll be nice to see if it is possible. So Christopher, I will get your email afterwards. I think we do get a little printout of the emails, and I will send you an email, and I'll try it out myself and just see how you can actually get that into Revit. It'll be really good. So I can just send that through to you afterwards. All right. Okay. Thanks, Christopher, your question. I will get back to you. And thanks, guys, for attending. I hope you guys got something out of that webinar. And please do join our other webinars. I know that the next one is the AutoCAD tips and tricks in September, and I'll be presenting that one. So please do attend. That'll be great. Have a nice Friday, everyone.